Hang his skull higher, where the fire can lick it clean. The words struck the night like a lash, guttural and cruel, followed by a wave of harsh laughter. Flames spat sparks into the desert wind, shadows twisting across the iron rack where skulls gleamed in uneven rows. Their eyeless sockets stared into eternity, and their teeth shone in fractured grins that mocked both the living and the dead. Vorik the Unbroken rose from the fire pit, his massive frame cutting a jagged silhouette against the flames. The cybernetic eye embedded in his scarred skull glowed red, its lens narrowing with disdain. He raised his cup of black liquor and drank deep. "These are our trophies," he declared. "Let the galaxy know no prey survives us." His words rang with the pride of a tyrant, heavy and absolute. The hunters howled in agreement, slamming their claws on metal, their voices thick with arrogance. Elias Vane lay prone in the dark beyond the camp's light, each muscle taut with hunger and hate. He was thin, carved down to wire and bone by weeks of survival, yet his eyes burned like live coals. He did not move. He barely breathed. Every beat of his heart was measured, every thought sharpened. His gaze locked on the rack of skulls. Among them was one fractured at the temple, a crack he knew too well. He could not say her name, but she had been human, and she had been taken. The sight nailed him to the earth. Moulter, the drunk, staggered forward, nearly dropping his mug. His words sloshed out with his drink. "This one, still smiling after the boil. Even death can't hide their teeth." He wheezed laughter that bled into coughing, collapsing to the sand in a heap of foolish mirth. The others roared, all except Xeric, the youngest of them, lean and tense. His spines twitched as his gaze darted into the tree line. His voice quavered as he leaned toward Vorik. "Something moves in the shadows. The winds do not move like that. I hear it." Vorik slammed his claw down, rattling the iron table. His cyber eye flared like a burning coal. "Cowardice," he snarled. "Every shadow bends you. The only predator here is me." His declaration rolled like thunder, daring the night itself to disagree. But the night had teeth. Elias saw it first, a shimmer in the haze above the fire, a distortion too deliberate to be mistake. Cloak-Tech, a presence moving where no presence should be. The hairs on his arms bristled. His hunger vanished beneath the colder weight of recognition. The shimmer stepped forward. The air bent around a form, and then the cloak fell away. Kaeldar emerged. He stood taller than any alien there, armor black as volcanic glass, each plate etched with sigils older than memory. His mask concealed his face, but the burning eyes within pierced the camp like twin brands. Blades curved from his arms, silver crescents catching the firelight. He did not speak at once. He simply stood, still as an idol, inevitable as death. The fire guttered. The hunters froze, claws hovering midair. Moulter's mug slipped from his grasp and shattered against the dirt. Xeric's breath hitched like child's. Kaeldar's voice broke the silence, low, guttural, each syllable a stone grinding in the throat of a beast. "Trophies." His gaze swept to the rack of skulls, pausing upon the human remains. His stance shifted almost imperceptibly, but the meaning was clear. He recognized them. Not prey, not spoils. A violation. Elias's chest tightened. Even the predator of predators had seen the insult, had marked it. The aliens had mocked humanity, and now something far worse than man had come to answer the insult. Vorik stepped forward, cyber eye flaring brighter. His pride refused to bow, even as his hunters wavered. "You trespass, creature. This ground belongs to me. Leave, or I will cut your spine and hang it among the others." Kaeldar did not move. The stillness of him was more threatening than any roar. He tilted his head slightly, studying Vorik as though deciding whether arrogance itself could be prey. Xeric burst out, voice high with terror. "He hunts us. Can you not see? He does not come to warn. He comes to slaughter." Vorik's claw struck him hard across the face, blood splattering against the sand. "Silence," he thundered. "I will not bend to shadows." Moulter laughed nervously, his words slurring. Maybe he just wanted a drink." The attempt at humor fell dead against the silence. And then Kaeldar vanished. One moment he stood among them. The next he dissolved into shimmer and smoke. The hunters leapt to their feet, panic rising sharp and sudden. Plasma rifles snapped alive, blades unsheathed. Voices collided in a storm of fear. The first body fell with a sound too clean, a head separated from its shoulders in one perfect stroke. A spray of blood hissed in the fire. Screams erupted. The second fell with a hole punched through its throat, gurgling into silence. Chaos devoured the camp. Elias pressed flat into the earth, heart pounding. Each shot fired was cover. Each scream was distraction. He did not waste the gift. Humanity's strength had never been brute force. Humanity had always thrived in chaos, had always twisted disorder into opportunity. That truth was why he lived still when the others had not. Kaeldar reappeared for a heartbeat, blades dripping, his stance composed, his movements almost lazy. He wanted them to feel it, to understand. Xeric shrieked that they were being herded, that they were not prey, but sport. His terror was naked, honest, the only truth in the camp. But Vorik silenced him again, rage drowning reason, pride strangling survival. Elias smiled faintly in the dirt. Pride was their anchor. Pride would be their grave. The hunters fired wildly into shadows. The air filled with the stench of plasma and blood. Molter scrambled into the dirt, mewling. Vorik roared, his voice cracking under strain, his authority crumbling even as he bellowed. Kaeldar moved like lightning unseen, and the night itself seemed to recoil. Elias's eyes returned to the rack of skulls, those hollow faces gleaming in firelight. Silent witnesses to the folly of hunters who believe themselves gods. His hand tightened on a shard of glass bound with duct tape, that symbol of stubborn survival. He whispered to himself, voice barely audible, words more mantra than sound. Adapt, improvise, endure. And you, hearing this now, must carry the truth. Strength belongs not to the arrogant who boast, nor to the mighty who shout. It belongs to the ones who wait, who watch, who strike when the moment tilts. Never forget, every predator becomes prey in time, and even the smallest ember, tended in silence, can rise to burn the world of giants. The fire spat sparks into the night as bodies fell. One moment the camp had been full of laughter, the next it was a gallery of screams. Kaeldar moved unseen, cloaked in distortion, his blades singing through the air with surgical grace. The hunters swung blindly, their plasma bolts cracking into the dark, each shot carving holes in the shadows, but never finding the predator within. Elias stayed low, pressed against the dirt, his ribs aching with each breath. His mind worked faster than his fear. He could not fight like them. He could not even fight like Kaeldar. But he could endure. He could think. His eyes flicked toward the armory tent beyond the fire pit, a low structure of torn canvas and steel ribs. Inside were weapons, tools, a chance. Xeric stumbled back from the chaos, his claws shaking, his voice breaking. He toys with us. He drives us into corners like cattle. His eyes were wide, full of knowledge no one else dared to speak. For that knowledge he was cursed. For Vorik's pride thundered louder than reason. The leader's cybernetic eye burned as he seized Xeric by the throat and slammed him to the dirt. Fear is death before death, Vorik growled. Speak it again, and I'll carve silence into your skull. Elias saw Xeric's claws twitch in futile protest before falling limp. Fear had truth, and truth had no place in Vorik's dominion. Molter crawled across the sand like a worm, still clutching his shattered mug as though it could shield him. He muttered to himself, half prayers and half jokes, a babble of nonsense that made him seem untouchable to the predator's interest. Elias almost pitied him. Almost. Another scream cut the night, and Elias used the distraction to move. He crept low, darting from shadow to shadow, the glass shard in his palm a cold reassurance. His boots whispered against the sand, his breath shallow, his body angled toward survival. The nearer he drew to the armory, the clearer the smell of scorched metal and blood became. He pushed the stench down, forced his focus on the task. Kaeldar reappeared then, uncloaking in a shimmer of liquid air. His body was drenched in alien blood, his movements deliberate, calm. He stood in the center of the camp, as though daring them to attack. One hunter raised his rifle and screamed. In a blur of motion, Kaeldar's blade split him from collar to hip. The weapon clattered into silence. Vorik roared, charging forward, his plasma blade igniting in a blaze of red light. Sparks hissed as the sand fused beneath his feet. "You think yourself death?" "I am death," he bellowed. His arrogance was a shield he mistook for armor. The clash came sudden and violent. Kaeldar met him with twin blades, each strike precise, measured, testing. Vorik's strikes were furious, wide, heavy with brute force. Sparks flew, firelight flared against steel and chitin. The air rang with the music of war. Elias slipped inside the armory. His hands searched quickly, efficiently. He found a pulse pistol, half-charged, its casing scorched but functional. Beside it, a crude blade, heavy and awkward. He took both, wrapping the pistol grip with his duct tape to steady it in his thin hand. The aliens might mock the gray ribbon, but it was his salvation. He tested the weight, his breath steadying. The duel outside grew louder, Vorik's rage colliding with Kaeldar's silence. Each strike was a drumbeat, each parry a clash of thunder. Elias stepped to the flap of the tent, watching. He should wait, let them bleed each other dry. Survival whispered patience. But another voice stirred inside him, quieter yet heavier. Those skulls still hung on the rack, hollow reminders of laughter at human death. To walk away would be survival, but it would not be justice. Xeric crawled toward him, blood matting his scales, his eyes wide with terror. "He will not stop," he rasped. "He hunts until none are left." His gaze found Elias, recognition flashing there. For a moment Xeric saw what the others had not. The human survivor, hidden among them, weapon in hand. His mouth opened as if to warn the camp, but Kaeldar's blade struck then, ending his truth in a spray of blood. Elias ducked back, heart racing. He was no longer hidden. The predator's gaze had passed too near, too sharp. Whether Kaeldar spared him or saved him, Elias could not tell. But the moment of invisibility had ended. Molter stumbled past, staggering, tripping over corpses, somehow untouched by the slaughter. His eyes were wide and glassy, his laugh cracked and hysterical. "Still alive," he muttered. "Can't kill old Molter. Luck of fools. Luck of fools." Elias felt a chill. Luck might carry that fool further than all his cunning. The duel roared higher. Vorik's eye flared bright, his blades sweeping arcs of crimson light. Kaeldar moved like water, sidestepping, striking, testing. The predator was not merely killing. He was measuring. Every clash was a question, every strike an answer. Elias understood it then. Kaeldar was not here simply to slaughter. He was here to judge. The weight of that realization pressed into Elias's chest. If Kaeldar judged Vorik unworthy, he would fall. If Kaeldar judged Elias unworthy, he would fall too. Survival would demand not only endurance, but proof. Humanity would need to prove itself to death itself. Elias raised his pistol, the duct-taped grip steady in his hand. He leveled it at Vorik, whose arrogance bled into exhaustion as Kaeldar pressed harder, faster. The predator's blades flashed like lightning, each strike peeling away certainty. Vorik's roar turned desperate, his steps faltering. Elias fired. The blast struck the cybernetic eye, shattering it in a burst of sparks and blood. Vorik reeled back, his scream ragged and furious. Kaeldar struck instantly, both blades carving in a blur. The leader fell, split clean, his arrogance torn apart with him. The camp stilled. The fire crackled. Corpses lay scattered like broken idols. Kaeldar stood above the ruin, silent, his armor gleaming dark with blood. His gaze lifted, finding Elias. For a long moment predator and human locked eyes. No sound but the fire, no witness but the stars. Elias lifted the pistol again, ready for death. But Kaeldar did not strike. Instead he approached slowly, each step deliberate. He stopped before Elias, close enough that the heat of his armor brushed the human skin. Then, with one claw, he touched Elias lightly on the shoulder. A mark, not a wound. Recognition, not dismissal. His voice rumbled low, guttural and absolute. Rival. And then he turned, cloak rippling, and vanished into the night. Elias stood, trembling, pistol still raised, his body carved from exhaustion, but his spirit unbroken. He lowered the weapon slowly, his eyes finding the rack of skulls once more. He stepped forward, pulled one free, and held it gently. Not as a trophy, but as a promise. Molter sat nearby, laughing in disbelief, alive against all reason. Elias ignored him. His eyes were on the stars, on the silence that followed death. And you, listener, must understand this. Survival is not measured by the strength of your strike or the sharpness of your blade. It is measured by the moment you stand unbroken in the shadow of death, and the predator chooses to spare you not as prey, but as rival. Carry this truth. Respect is the rarest armor, and it is earned in silence, in endurance, in fire. The silence after slaughter was louder than the battle itself. Smoke rose in thin ribbons, curling into the star-pierced sky, carrying with it the smell of charred flesh and burned steel. Elias stood among corpses, his hands still wrapped around the duct-taped pistol, his pulse hammering in his ears. He had not yet decided whether he was alive by skill, chance, or Kael'thar's mercy. The weight of that uncertainty was heavier than the weapon in his grip. Molter sat on the ground nearby, rocking back and forth, his cracked mug dangling from his clawed hand. He chuckled in a hollow rhythm, a laugh without humor. "Luck of fools," he whispered, as though the words themselves kept him alive. Elias ignored him. The skull in his other hand, taken from the rack, rested against his chest. He clutched it not as relic, but as reminder. The fire sputtered, and the night deepened. Elias felt the pressure of Kael'thar's final word still burning in his bones. Rival. It was no small thing. It was a verdict, an elevation, but also a sentence. Rivals were not spared. Rivals were tested again, until either they surpassed or were destroyed. Somewhere out in the endless dark, Kael'thar still hunted. He would return. Elias staggered from the camp, each step dragging the weight of exhaustion. His ribs burned, his throat tasted of iron, but he forced himself forward. Survival demanded motion. Justice demanded resolve. He would not be the skull on the rack. The dunes stretched endless, a barren ocean of ash and dust. Elias walked until his legs shook, then pressed further, each breath a rebellion against despair. Above, the stars were cruel witnesses, indifferent to his struggle. Yet he walked. That was humanity's strength. Not power, not grace, but the refusal to yield. By dawn, he reached the remnants of a crashed shuttle. Its hull was cracked open like an egg, its circuits dead, its beacon useless. He crawled inside, seeking shade, and collapsed against the shattered console. His mind wandered to earth, to faces long gone, to laughter that once warmed nights colder than this. He had been alone too long, but now he carried something heavier than loneliness, a recognition that humanity had been seen and judged. Molter followed. Somehow, impossibly, the fool had survived the night. His shadow fell across Elias as he shuffled inside. Mug still in hand, grin still broken. Still breathing, he croaked. "Told you. Luck. Can't kill old Molter." His laugh was a cough. He collapsed in a corner, humming tunelessly. Elias closed his eyes, but not in rest. He thought of Kael'thar. He thought of the next trial. It came sooner than he imagined. The air grew heavy by nightfall, the silence too complete. Elias's eyes snapped open, and he knew before he heard it. The low hum of distortion, the shimmer of cloaked movement. Kael'thar had returned. Elias rose slowly, pistol in hand, skull still tucked against his chest. The predator appeared in a ripple of air, his armor dripping with fresh blood from other hunts. His blades glowed faintly in the gloom. He studied Elias as though the human were an equation demanding solution. Molter whimpered, pressing himself against the wall, muttering fragments of prayers. Kael'thar ignored him. His eyes were only for Elias. "You call me rival," Elias said, voice hoarse but steady. "Then test me. But understand this. I don't fight for glory. I don't fight for trophies. I fight because we have to. And I won't stop." Kael'thar tilted his head, the motion strangely contemplative. Then he advanced. The duel began not with words but with silence broken by steel. Kael'thar struck fast, blades slicing arcs of deadly light. Elias ducked, rolled, fired. The pistol's blast seared across the predator's shoulder, drawing sparks but no cry. Kael'thar pressed harder, each strike testing, measuring, adapting. Elias moved with desperation, every dodge fueled by raw instinct, every counterstrike by stubborn will. He was slower, weaker, but not without wit. He feigned left, then fired right, forcing Kaeldar to twist aside. He swung the crude blade he had taken, its edge biting shallow into alien armor. Pain flared in his ribs as Kaeldar's counter sliced across his side, shallow but hot. Elias staggered, but refused to fall. The predator circled, watching, as though waiting for surrender. Elias spat blood and raised his pistol again. "You'll have to kill me standing," he growled. The second exchange was faster, deadlier. Sparks flew as steel clashed, sand scorched under plasma heat. Elias fired until the pistol sputtered empty, then hurled it aside, gripping the blade in both hands. Kaeldar struck with both swords, raining down blows like thunder. Elias blocked, parried, stumbled, but each time found the strength to rise again. At last, Kaeldar disarmed him, one blade sending Elias's weapon spinning into the dark. The predator's second strike halted inches from Elias's throat. The shimmer of light danced across the human skin. Silence stretched. Elias met his gaze unflinching. He did not beg. He did not yield. He simply stood, chest heaving, blood dripping, defiance burning brighter than fear. Kaeldar withdrew his blade. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered it, then pressed the hilt against Elias's chest. A gesture not of death, but of inheritance. A predator's recognition of one who would not break. Moulter gasped, muttering incoherent words. Elias barely heard him. His eyes remained locked on Kaeldar, who gave a single nod before cloaking again, vanishing into the night. Elias fell to his knees, the sword heavy in his grasp. He had not won, not truly, but he had endured. And endurance was victory enough. Days later, he walked from the wreck, sword slung across his back, skull still in hand. Moulter trailed behind, still muttering, still laughing at his own impossible survival. They were a strange pair, one fool, one rival, both alive where none should be. Elias looked up at the sky, vast and merciless. Somewhere above, Kaeldar hunted. Somewhere beyond, more trials waited. He would meet them all. He was no longer prey. He was rival. Perhaps, one day, he would be more. And you, listener, who carries your own burdens across the desert of your days, understand this. Strength is not the absence of fear, nor the dominance of power. Strength is standing when every force demands you fall. Strength is endurance in the face of judgment, and the courage to meet death with eyes unshaken. Carry this truth. You are not prey, unless you believe yourself to be.